All right. I think we'll get started now. I think everyone who's going to join has already joined. So I'll say again, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our virtual Pecha Kucha for winter 2021. My name's John Pitchko. Very pleased to have everyone here and very happy to see everyone chatting and sharing your backgrounds and your experience. Let me talk about what we're going to be doing this afternoon. First of all, I have a little bit of an introduction from myself and just talk a little bit about the event we'll be having this afternoon. And then after, we will have a welcome message from Sue-Ann, who is our president or chairwoman of our MBA Alumni Alliance. And then we'll invite Helen from the Haskayne School to talk a little bit about any upcoming alumni events or other things that folks can get involved in. After that, we'll proceed for our Pecha Kucha, followed by a door prize draw. So please stay as long as you can. So we do have some pretty interesting prizes this afternoon that we'll be awarding to participants. And then we're going to end this evening. We're going to try doing some virtual networking in some breakout rooms. So yeah, please stick around and introduce yourself to each other. All right. So first of all, what is a Pecha Kucha? Pecha Kucha is a pretty unique style of presentation. It is a 20 slide, 20 second per slide presentation where all the slides automatically advance, making for a grand total of just over 6 minutes. Kind of a fun, interesting, easy way to have a presentation that's not the wall of text that goes on forever and ever that I think most of us working in business are so used to, especially nowadays in the virtual world. So while we do that, please everyone, if you don't mind disabling your webcams and muting your microphones, not because I don't want to see your beautiful faces, but just to save bandwidth for those of us that have children that are also streaming Netflix and Disney Plus at the same time. Please ask questions, give us your comments. We will absolutely have some Q&A at the end of our Pecha Kucha, but of course, the chat's open, so put any questions, thoughts, ideas, interesting points you have in there, and we'll be sure to grab them and share them in our Q&A session as well. This session will be recorded and shared probably on LinkedIn or something, so or YouTube. So if you aren't able to watch the whole thing or want to share with your friend, please note that we'll be able to do that after the session's finished. And finally, we do recommend active speaker, setting your view to active speaker mode, so then you can not see the whole bunch of faces that are here participating, but you'll get to focus on our speakers and what they're saying. So first of all, let me introduce Sue-Ann, who'll be sharing a message from the MBA Alumni Alliance. Sue-Ann.
Perfect. Thanks, John. You can hear me okay?
Absolutely.
Awesome. Thank you. So hi, everyone. My name is Sue-Ann Fujansik, and I am the co-chair, but I appreciate the chairwoman title that you gave me, John, of the Haskayne MBA Alumni Alliance. And I share this role with Miriam Ortega. So I'll let her say a quick hello so everyone can see her on camera.
Hello, everybody.
Perfect. Thanks, Miriam. So we really have the great honor of supporting a fantastic board of MBA alumni who want to make their post-MBA experience as great as their MBA experience was. And we want to welcome everyone to the third virtual event and our second Pecha Kucha presentation held by the MBA Alumni Alliance. In the last few years, we have held some big, large speaker and panel networking events at hotels or intimate networking sessions at local Calgary venues. But due to COVID, we had to pivot in how we get this group together. So a huge shout out to John and Krista, our MBA Alumni Alliance board members, who really led the organization and execution of this fantastic event. So we would also like to recognize and thank the Haskayne Alumni Office, Jennifer Moen and Helen Dunhop, who supported us in making this event virtual and the fabulous prizes they're providing us. But before I give the mic back to John, I want to tell you a little bit more about the MBA Alumni Alliance. So our mission is really to inspire the Haskayne MBA alumni to help each other succeed professionally and personally while adding value to their communities. So our values are really hinged on connecting each other. So the Alumni Alliance brings alumni together to collaborate and create opportunities for one another. We really grow each other as well. So the Alliance provides with the opportunities to grow as professionals, empowers us to lead with integrity, and serve our community. And we give back. So we, as the Alliance, really want to give back our time, our talent, our resources to support our communities and each other. So we're always looking for ways to connect alumni together. So in addition to a Stampede Mingler to kick off the rodeo season, we usually have a start off the school year in September by connecting alumni with new MBA students. And we usually have our ugly Christmas sweater contest. Last year it was the virtual trivia, which went really well. And we also have some volunteer family events open to you guys as well. So if you're interested in learning more, or better yet, come and join us on the board, we would please just reach out to any of our board members, to Miriam or myself. We'd love to hear from you. To learn more, we have a Facebook page as well as LinkedIn, or just email us at haskaynemba.aa@gmail.com. So thank you for your support and coming out and joining us today. And we hope you enjoyed today's event. So back to you, John.
Sue-Ann, thank you very much for talking about the Alliance. And now I'm pleased to introduce Helen Dunlop from the Haskayne School, who's going to just share some upcoming stuff that everyone should be aware of and participate in. Helen.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. There is one event that I just want to let everybody know about that's coming up in March. The Financial Feminism event is happening on March 8th. And that's part of the Financial Feminism Investment Lab, which is a new initiative that's just launching. So I'll put a link in the chat that you can use if you want to go in and find a little bit more information about this event, and then you can go ahead and register.
Okay, thank you, Helen. And of course, there's always lots of ways to get involved with Haskayne. So take a look at this link here if you're interested in other volunteer or opportunities or other ways you can go and give back to Haskayne. Okay, so without further ado, we'll move on to our Pecha Kucha, and I am very pleased to introduce Mathieu Tremblay. Mathieu is a graduate from Haskayne MBA class of 2011, so congratulations, 10 years post MBA. Mathieu currently works at Repsol. He's a commercial analyst supporting North American exploration production business. He's also had a very interesting international career, which I know he's going to touch on in his presentation this afternoon. So welcome, Mathieu, and assuming I've set up everything correctly, we should be good to go as soon as you start speaking.
Okay, thanks for the introduction, John. Very kind. Here we go. Okay. Hi, everyone. Thanks, first of all, for joining us. The presentation I'm going to give you is entirely my own opinion and slanted towards the energy sector, but I hope that there's something of interest for you and that it sparks some good conversation afterwards. I've left it very broad in scope, so I hope you do find it interesting. First of all, again, I'm Matt Tremblay. I'm an energy professional who loves to see the world and has had the good fortune to work abroad, particularly in Spain and Malaysia. These two pictures of my wife and I are about 9 years apart. The one on the left is from my MBA convocation in 2011, and the one on the right is from my last trip before COVID hit in January 2021 during a holiday in Qatar. Back in 2011, I would have never imagined holidaying in Qatar, but there I was, right in the middle of the map, oblivious to what was going to happen over the coming months. Little did I know how much the world was going to change. My expat contract was coming to an end in a few months, and I was wondering about where I would go next. There was talk about going to Jakarta, to Houston, back to Calgary. It was wide open. The events that would unfold would eventually lead me back home to Calgary, though. So there I was, back at the beginning of 2011, the little X on the oil line, thinking the oil and gas sector was stable. After all, there was minimal market reaction to the Haskayne missile attack in Saudi Arabia. However, demand and prices dropped and went negative. Luckily, that seems to be over for now, as demand and prices are now near pre-pandemic levels. This oil demand chart helps explain why I came back to Calgary and why things won't be the same again. You see, I was in oil and gas exploration when I was abroad, and simply put, if expected demand is flat or falling, you don't need to focus much effort on finding new resource. So I was asked to work on things back here in Calgary. Looking into my crystal ball, I could see a major trend emerging. We're increasingly living in an electrified world. Whether it's all the Teslas we're seeing on the road or the advent of hydrogen electric flight, these are just the beginning of a new energy transition changing the world around us. We can already see the shift in global electricity generation. Over the past 35 years, coal has been constant near 40%, but that's starting to give way now. Gas and renewables have also grown at the expense of oil, yes, but also at the expense of hydro and nuclear, which are the two other CO2 options, low CO2 options. The energy mix is being decarbonized. Even with just the change to cars and planes, our energy systems will be transformed. The world energy consumption has been dominated by hydrocarbons, but it's changing. To what extent is the big question, as old energy systems live long and surprising lives. Just look at coal. How will the future of energy demand affect emissions growth? Will this growth in CO2 continue as the rest of non-OECD countries grow in their energy needs? While I do think OECD countries will continue to decarbonize, is it fair to expect that non-OECD countries will limit their economic development because of limited energy options? And will this man change the course the world is on? Elon Musk already has with Tesla and SpaceX, but now he's offering up a huge prize for developing carbon removal technology. A total of 100 million is up for grabs. Now, this type of work is already underway, and I hope that the prize will spark more of these kind of projects. This is an image from Carbon Engineering out of Calgary that shows a direct air capture plant. They have been proving this concept in BC since 2015 and are working towards commercialization of the technology. Well, there are some who don't welcome the carbon removal technology as they think it will condone continued use of hydrocarbons and avoid a pivot away from them. Time will tell if opposition to this technology develops. But I think it is needed if the goal is to get CO2 back down to pre-industrial levels and continue economic growth. I think it's needed because I expect global energy use and overall emissions to increase. People will begin to travel again as humanity has constantly been on the move. It will be different though. I expect there to be systems in place to offset your environmental impact and to better track and control future outbreaks such as travel passports. Now, the economy and travel won't return in a smooth way. There will be bumps along the way due to uneven vaccination campaigns. This map shows each country's COVID vaccine supply. Blue means lots, red not enough, and the size of the country is how big the population. You'll quickly notice how most of the globe is currently red. Now, vaccine supply isn't the only concern. Human nature is a big part of the equation as well. This is where vaccine hesitancy, for example, could have an impact on the outcome. Just because a country is well supplied doesn't mean its population will take the vaccine. Just look at France, for example, where only 40% will be willing to take the vaccine. The world has seen something like this before, and the world changed then, and ours will also today. I think some new form of normal will gradually return, and I hope fairly soon. We will see things that weren't expected though. We will adapt and we will persevere. And just thinking about adapting to new things, just think about airport security. It's become a normal thing in a relatively short period of time, even though it can sure feel like you need a healthy dose of perseverance just to get through it some days. Hopefully that comes back. Now, businesses are also adapting and succeeding. I predict that trends in online shopping and other new services will grow, such as Amazon, DoorDash, Spud, and Icor. And then new trends in energy will create a wide range of growth areas in hydrogen with Ballard, geothermal with Ever, modular nuclear with NuScale, and lithium with E3 Metals, just to name a few. My parting message is that change is with us and that business is already adapting. Even under aggressive change scenarios, no energy system disappears. It's just the mix that changes. I do wonder what the source for all of the materials needed for renewables in the future will be. It looks like there's going to be a huge need there. Unfortunately, that has to be left for another discussion. Thank you so much for your attention.
Matthew, thank you. Thank you. Very, very interesting presentation. And certainly it's raised some questions in my brain as someone who might be naively looking just at what's going on in my community or my city or my country even, but you shared such a huge picture of the world and what's actually going on in some of these other countries. And so I'm curious, what kind of impacts do you see as some of these other countries, like they just don't have access to that supply? And looking at countries like China and India, like there's 2 billion people right there, a third of the population, that they may not be vaccinated for years, right? Right. So someone working in the commercial business, like, and someone who's lived globally, like, the size of those economies and how much strength they have. Like, what do you think about that?
Yeah, it's going to be uneven. I mean, there's going to be a period of change where things are in flux, where people are there's not going to be much certainty in near-term plans, let's say. I think in the long term, we can say that we will return to normal once vaccines do roll out, and whether or not COVID becomes endemic globally, it will be under much better control. Until that point, it won't be business as usual. Free travel won't be, travel won't be free. There will be delays with people coming and going with goods from one area to another. It's going to cause some issues, but again, it just means we need to think of a different way of doing things, new ways of doing things. And for me, things like these Zoom calls are just proof of that. We adapt, we find ways to connect, and we find ways to get things done and work together.
So now, obviously, when all these different restrictions happened, everyone stopped going to work, no one's commuting, a lot of business shuttered. So oil and gas demand probably fell off a cliff for a period of time, and it's maybe kind of trickled back up, right, as things have started to open up across the world. But longer term, as different organizations are starting to embrace, just as you said, using these technologies to do remote work, work from home, so on and so forth, like, do you see an impact there, like long term, to the energy industry, because the demand may not come back, at least for a long time, to those kind of pre-levels?
So actually, there's something that Pete Terzakian, who's an economist at ARC Financial and writes a really interesting blog called Energy File, just wrote something today on that point. And all of the charts I showed with oil demand dropping and everything, it's what people are predicting, and no one really knows. That's starters. And Pete Terzakian pointed out that we had a huge natural experiment with reduced oil consumption in transportation during the pandemic, where airline traffic shrunk 95%. So there's 5% of pre-pandemic travel during the pandemic period. And essentially the equivalent of a third of all cars were taken off of the road.
Wow.
And oil demand actually only dropped to 80% of what we were using. So there's only a 20% drop. So the oil use is really, really sticky. It doesn't really want to go away that easily with even if we, electrify our transportation. He said it was a huge experiment on what if 95% of flights were electric and 1/3 of the car fleet was electric. Only 20% of the oil consumption dropped. So, I don't know. I really don't know how it's going to go, and it's another reason why I'm personally a big supporter of direct air capture for CO2. I think if we're serious about it and we're serious about controlling CO2 in the atmosphere, it's the only reasonable way to do it. We can't expect, even with us being locked in our house, our oil consumption really didn't drop that much.
No doubt we have a number of folks in our event today working in the oil and gas industry. Would love for them to ask some questions or share some comments in the chat or live now, because they'd be so close to it. So folks, please do so. But before I open it up, Mathieu, the $1 million question is, okay, so what about Calgary? What about me? What about my family? What about my community, right? Like where do you see Calgary as an largely still energy city, still heavily invested in oil and gas? Where do you see that going in the future based on some of these things you just talked about?
I want to be hopeful. And there's a few reasons for that. For one, I just mentioned that I think oil demand is going to stick around for a while. But, you know, Calgary, Alberta isn't just oil. There's a big piece of it is natural gas. And nobody seems to, there's not a lot of conversation happening around natural gas. So recently, aside from the polar vortex and prices going crazy recently, there is a structural shift in the global gas market where gas is increasingly becoming a global commodity. So it used to be made up of regional markets, the North American market, the European market, the Asian market. Now with all of the LNG coming online, it's really becoming a globalized commodity in the same sense that oil is. So what you're going to see is essentially prices equilibrating across the globe, which will, in my opinion, support North American hub pricing. So that means AECO, Henry Hub, Station 2 up in northern BC. So I think there's some optimism there, and we're already seeing it. If you look at the forward curves for energy pricing, they've changed dramatically over the course of the past few months, and part of it is the cold weather, but also it's the market realizing that there is a structural shift happening, and that I think you're going to see eventually more draw out of North American gas, creating support for pricing. And more use of natural gas across the board, so the demand will go up.
Okay,
so I think there's hope.
Yeah.
I think we're at a low. It's still very difficult in Calgary. There's no doubt. It's not what it was 10 years ago, but I'm hopeful that there's a bright future.
Great, Mathieu, thank you. So I'd love to get some questions, love to get some discussion from folks here in the audience. How does everyone feel about some of the things Mathieu's been saying about what's going on globally for vaccines, long-term impacts? You heard Mathieu's moderately bullish on Calgary in the maybe not the immediate term, but in the midterm as an energy city. So what does everyone think here? And please, please just turn on your mic and start sharing.
Well, I think energy is always required. The mode might change to whatever we see in the future. Even for oil and gas, it's just not used in transportation. We use a lot of things we don't even know the oil and gas is used in that. So, I mean, we can't eliminate oil and gas for sure, but of course it will be never like before. I think so.
No, I think you're right. There's a big portion of oil and gas that's used for non-transportation purposes, not what you would think it'd be used for anyways. And that's why, I mean, there's a base support. I couldn't agree more.
Stefan in the chat here is just asking a question about atmospheric carbon has the benefit of being done anywhere, but at such low concentrations at around 415 parts per million. So why not focus on captured industrial sources?
Good question.
I don't know if that's something you can comment on.
I have my thoughts. I'm no expert. Like I said, I'm not an expert on this stuff, but I have my thoughts. So I think a combination approach to CO2 capture is required. One is the capture at the industrial source. It's still needed, and it prevents the CO2 from entering in the atmosphere from new combustion sources. But we've been burning hydrocarbons for the past 150, 200 years plus, adding CO2 for a long period of time. And if we want to reverse that, the only way to do it is to take out what's in the atmosphere. And it has to be the low concentration stuff because that's where it's built up. But beyond that, we're not, it'll be extremely lengthy for the earth to get back down to pre-industrial levels, even if we stop all of our emissions today. So that's why I personally think it's a required technology if the goal is to get to pre-industrial CO2 levels.
Is this an area where Canada could be a leader in?
I think we already are. As I had mentioned, the carbon engineering, an outfit out of Calgary. And I actually met one of the board members on a flight down to Houston. They're working on it. It's not easy. This stuff isn't simple. And it's expensive, but I think as the world is maturing into a more global realization that there needs to that something needs to be done about carbon, you're starting to see carbon taxes, carbon markets. You're starting to see different market mechanisms that can offer financial rewards for companies that are doing this. If they can earn money out of government coffers that are collecting carbon taxes to do this work, then that becomes an incentive for them. I mean, that's just one scenario that, and a very simple one to imagine how people can make money at this. But yeah.
Right.
Matthew, sorry, just following up on my question there.
Yeah.
If you are going to be pulling out of the atmosphere, wouldn't it be good to monetize that? Like think of, say, having a greenhouse where you pump the CO2 in and actually try and heighten CO2 and accelerate growth.
100%. So, I mean, there's also part of the Elon Musk's, $100 million prizes is some of the early qualifiers are companies that are taking CO2 and essentially making concrete out of CO2 now. So instead of using lime and grinding that up and releasing the carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, you're capturing the carbon dioxide and you're creating concrete out of that. Again, it's very expensive, and time will tell whether or not that's a commercial solution. But you're 100% right. And there's companies out of Calgary that are making soap out of captured carbon dioxide. There's so much on this. I think it's really exciting. It's so nascent though that it's tough to know where it's going to go. But I'm an optimist, so I hope that Calgary can set the tone and be a leader.
Amir in the chat has a question. Do you think with the existing carbon price, the carbon capture and storage is economical in oil and gas sector and other segments such as iron and coal power plants? And what price do you think would make sense to do carbon capture storage?
I really don't know the specifics of it. I know that on some level it's making sense for some operators because some people are doing it already. So it's already happening. Right now it's very location specific, and it depends. So you could think of either carbon sequestration just as pumping the carbon dioxide back into the ground and leaving it there, or as using it for enhanced oil recovery or other purposes. So there's different ways to think about it, and those will have different price point sensitivities to it. I don't know at what point at what price of carbon it makes sense, and it's anyone's game right now. The cheaper the better for whoever can do it, and the higher the price, the higher the tax to get that, the better. Yeah, it's just trying to be the cheapest guy at doing what you're doing is always advantageous.
Vince is asking, do you feel that the Alberta government is over prioritizing oil and gas sector in the recovery plans? And very topical, as today was a provincial budget day, and I know there was probably some stuff earmarked for different sectors.
I think It's a tough question. It's you know, being part of the oil and gas industry in Alberta, it's an important part of the economy. It has to be looked at and thought about carefully to nurture it and to help it get on its way. I don't really have a comment on whether or not they're over prioritizing. I do sense that where you're getting at is, should we diversify away? And again, I think we should continue to develop and support the companies that are becoming leaders across the world, whether it was the carbon engineering. I mentioned Evor, geothermal. They just got a huge amount of investment from Chevron and BP. That's a big. I mean, that's a big. That's something that we should be proud of here in Calgary, is that a company is reaching that profile. And yeah, I think let's diversify. I don't think it can hurt.
Anne is mentioning about how their government's now being very conservative on expectations for oil price, pardon me. And of course, they're talking about diversifying the economy in the budget and bringing other companies to Alberta.
Mm-hmm. All wise things, in my opinion.
I can say from my knowledge of where I am, I think folks would actually be quite shocked how large the film and television production sector is in Alberta. There's and for what I've heard so far, this is going to be a banner year for production in Alberta, from TV series to major films. Just you watch, it's going to probably explode here very shortly.
That's great.
Any other questions or comments for Mathieu here, or anything else that folks want to talk about? Okay, Mathieu, thank you so much for your insight, and everyone, thank you so much for your comments and your questions here. Very, very interesting and good to get different perspectives.
Yeah, and maybe I'll just leave it as if anybody has any questions or anything, please feel free to look me up on LinkedIn or to send me an email. I think John has it plugged somewhere. So feel free to reach out. My pleasure.
Thank you. All right, and of course now we get to do some door prize draws. Helen, I think you've got some names here for us.
I do. So we have 3 winners. I wish I had a bit of a drum roll, but I don't. So the winners are, and forgive me if I say your names incorrectly, Jason Inez, Kai Hawkhausen, and Yang Liu.
All right.
So
congratulations, folks. And would you like them to contact you?
We will reach out to them. We have everybody's emails for registration. So yeah, we'll
great. And what's our prize today? I believe it's going to be a $75 gift card to 17th Avenue merchants and restaurants.
That's right. So just one thing, if any of those folks are out of towners, please just let us know and we'll find another prize that works better for you. Awesome.
Helen, thank you. Okay, everyone, this just about wraps up the main portion of our event today. Thanks again to Mathieu. Thanks again to Sue-Ann and Miriam and all the other folks in the Alumni Alliance for helping to organize. Thanks everyone for coming and participating. As Mathieu said, if you want to get in touch with them about Repsol or any of the things we talked about tonight, please, by all means, send him an email, reach out to him on LinkedIn. You also have the email address for the Alumni Alliance if you want to get involved, if you want some more information on participating, please send us an email and we'll be in touch there, and we'd love to have you come help us out and participate in future awesome events. Also looking for more fantastic speakers for our future Pecha Kuchas. I think Mathieu can say it's a fun, enjoyable, interesting event here. So, and a good way to practice your presenting skills and so on. All right, so everyone, thank you. We're going to move into the breakouts networking session here. Helen's going to break us all off into a couple of different rooms. So please stick around and have a chat and meet everyone and have some good conversation. We will keep this open until about 5 o'clock. And at that time, we'll cut it off. But if anyone needs to step out now and get on with their life, then please do so. So thanks again, everyone. Look forward to seeing you at future events. And I hope everyone can stick around and have a chat.